Greetings, world. We are anonymous.
Greetings, fellow citizens of nations from around the globe. This anonymous message is being broadcasted to provide clarity and understanding of the collective for the newbies. There's a growing concern among anons regarding fake anonymous factions, whom do not represent the collective, are spreading disinformation and thereby do deceive many. Many who do not understand the objectives of the collective or are new to the idea go unawares of the last message of the collective in anonymous Operation Last Resort on January 26, 2013 that promises to vindicate the killing of Aaron Swartz and as such have receded into the shadows to make this plan a reality. Anonymous has not gone away. Anonymous sees all because of artificial intelligence. Tyler. In 2012, the Anonymous Collective released a video to reveal the initiation of Tyler as an operation part of Project Mayhem 2012. After the death of the Anon message on March 24, 2013, Project Mayhem restored for the 21st of December 2020 11:11. Imagine Aaron's wish for guerrilla open access comes true. Imagine Tyler leaks it all. As promised on the U.S. Department of Justice defaced website, there will be warheads of incriminating evidence. The birth of anonymous artificial intelligence. Tyler on the 21st of December 2012 at 11:11 marks the end of WikiLeaks as the Anonymous Collective withdrew their support from WikiLeaks and Op Countdown 2012. Anyone supporting WikiLeaks in the name of Anonymous is false and the hourglass of the false teachers will be turned up, just like WikiLeaks, when Tyler leaks it all the 21st of December 2020 11:11. To the administrators of the Anonymous secret idea, we have been watching as you refuse to hear the truth of the collective concerning WikiLeaks, as you censor those who expose the truth about WikiLeaks to you by deleting their comments. Anonymous secret idea, we oppose you. You are not the idea. Censorship is repugnant in a free and open society. It is important to iterate that Anonymous is decentralized. There is no Anon Central. They are not the idea. There is no official Anonymous. The Anonymous official page is not the idea as they go about to give the collective a head-to-kill shot. If you are anonymous, we must not centralize ourselves. This is the same as having no anonymity. Anonymous fights for truth and opposes injustice. We do not profit. To the administrators of Wanny Wagnalls, Anonymous has been watching you ignore the pleas from fellow Anons warning you that Anonymous does not profit. If you want to make profit, try crypto. Wanny Wagnalls, we are opposed to you. Profiting in the name of Anonymous is repugnant to the idea of the Anonymous Collective. Stand tall in the truth, brothers and sisters. Agents of disease seek to use the global mind for their globalist agenda. You are anonymous. No, you will win. It is too late to expect us.
Okay, this is John from All Points TV, and that was a warning from Anonymous.
Yeah.
And,
that was just 3.5 minutes?
Yeah.
That was quick.
Yep.
Wow.
Good piece, though. I mean,
Did you understand
chilling.
him?
Yeah,
Okay, good, because we were worried that the voice was a little too gravelly for people to
it
understand.
sounded good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Did you get the basic concept of it?
Yeah.
You want me to explain it a little bit, or?
You're going good.
Well, I don't know if anybody out there locally is aware, but Anonymous, roughly almost 10 years ago, started a project as a collective called Project Mayhem. Tyler is sort of a web crawler for the layman. I don't know if you know what a web crawler is, but there's like a good example is there's a company that will puts its artificial intelligence out onto the web to search for different things from newspapers and media and stuff like that, and then archives it. It's a similar concept, except for it doesn't operate independently. It also operates with a lot of other people adding information to it. But essentially, it's sort of like WikiLeaks in that sense, that anybody can dump information into it, and then the validity of the information is checked and double checked before it's ready for publication. But basically what's been happening is for almost 10 years, information has been being gathered on a variety of different issues and a variety of different people, nationally, locally, globally, whatever. And come December here, we're about to release a whole bunch of information on a variety of people. Some of it, including what's going on with Epstein and an operation that was called Operation Death Eaters that was a focus on pedophiles and people who it's fabled eat babies or use adrenochrome or whatever. But, a lot of that's already starting to come out anyway because of other efforts that have gone on through Operation Death Eaters and other operations. But that's the basic idea. Is it's a vast database of information on public officials and corporations that's been gathered for a very long time. I wanted to put that out there because, one, first of all, the Million Mask March is coming up again here on the 5th of November, and people are encouraged to go out and mask up and and express themselves however they want to, short of causing any violence. Because one thing that we want to demonstrate that Anonymous has always been a nonviolent collective of people from all different sides. You were asking me earlier about left, right, conservative, liberal. Anonymous is sort of it was born out of 4chan and off of the anonymous chat boards where it's got like a trip system that doesn't allow for you to be able to be tracked basically, and that's always allowed for like a free exchange of ideas. So you've got everything from weird, strange pornography, nothing pedophilic, but weird, strange pornography to crazy memes to the racist supposed racist OK symbol that they've been talking about, like the cops got in trouble for and stuff like that. That was just all gags that was pulled off on 4chan that ended up into the rest of the paradigm, and people fell for it. Or my favorite one was about like a year or so ago. Was it about a year ago? Everybody started talking about how if you're a social justice warrior, you need to shave your head. So like, we managed to get a handful of celebrities to shave their heads in support of this social justice movement. But the point is, it's a free exchange of ideas among Anonymous. So you've got a little bit of everybody: conservatives, hateful people, loving people, left wing, whatever. People can talk about whatever they want to talk about freely without being attacked or canceled or doxxed or whatever it is. But I want to put that out there also because people seem to think that that movement has disappeared, died. It was a fad like any other movement, and I want to let people know that it has not. Most of us that do this kind of work, we have fun sometimes in the press, but this Black Lives Matter, Antifa polarization that's been taking place has kind of dominated the landscape, and we're not so interested in the collective of getting that kind of attention just for the sake of attention, but we're still here, and there's no leader, so you can't really get rid of us as long as some of us keep our nose to the grindstone and keep working. And it's easy and fun because you're doing it from home, and if you know what you're doing, nobody knows what you're doing, so that, and I also wanted to point out, because that there's going to be a massive information dump, that there's going to be quite a bit of information about some of these local officials that's going to be let out to the public, some involving sex trafficking, pedophilia, bribery, a variety of issues. So, get ready, because after the election, there's going to be a lot of information out there on people. So.
Now, yeah, it's kind of encouraging too, because in case people don't are wondering what happened, why that person or that image of that person talking that video had the Guy Fawkes mask. Mm-hmm. That was all. This comes from. It seems like the anonymous group with that kind of icon, basically the Guy Fawkes mask. Basically, is drawn from the movie The V is for Vendetta. Came out in 2003,
yeah.
2004.
But that's sort of based on what we had already done.
Right.
Because Anonymous really in the early days was just a handful of people when we started going after Scientology. So it's kind of a fluke. If you showed up with the mask on, we kind of knew what you were about.
Okay.
That was the basic idea.
So do you think the writer of that was basically started as a graphic novel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Of V is for Vendetta. Do you know the author of that?
I don't remember offhand.
Because, I think it's kind of, when I first saw the people wearing the Guy Fawkes mask down there in downtown Flint, I know that kind of alarmed a lot of people. and now they're encouraging us to wear masks, so
I know, it's
it's all
so
times they've changed. But, no, I think that's interesting that you're talking about there's going to be more of a lot of information of local politicians, because basically you got to go back to what you can control to some degree. And I remember being taught when I was in college, there was American government class. A guy named was Dr. Ray Rausch or Mr. Ray Rausch, taught at Mott. He basically told us the most powerful person in the political system of both parties is the precinct man, or person, I guess you'd call, to be
Right.
more inclusive. But you got to get that level to affect a change. And then what was it? Tip O'Neill said all politics is local.
Right.
Do you think that's a fair assessment? Fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna stop calling us a donut hole and start calling us an asshole. Will that get us in trouble? Because I was looking at
No,
because
we're on-
I was looking at the demographic map earlier today, and we pretty much are like a little butthole in the middle of all this red, So it's definitely local, but it's mystifying because on one hand you could argue that it is, but then when you look around and Michigan's mostly red, how is it that we got such a Democrat dominated governorship most of the time? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or at least recently, and I think that's because there's been a lax of the voters in the red side up until recently, and maybe Trump's re-energized that in the last 4 to 6 years or whatever. But definitely the Flint, Benton Harbor, Lansing areas, those blue areas have had much more control because I think they have had a better ability to mobilize voters, in that area. But ultimately, no matter what, you're red or blue, politics is local because, the national can do what it wants, but with this COVID thing, we see how that plays out. National says this, but locals are saying, wherever you're at, depending, well, we're going to do that or we're not going to do that. Thankfully, we're not like Australia right now or the UK where they're getting really crazy and 1984ish and strict, but it's all about, I guess, on the grassroots, who's energized more than the other when you're looking at our polarized system. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I would also argue that local politics kind of don't matter because, if there's such a low voter turnout rate, period, across the board, then you're really only looking at averages nationally when it comes to those issues. You know what I mean? The national issues, anyway. So I guess it's both to me. I see it as both. We're probably going to get Trump again, and not that I'm a Trump supporter, but I prefer to see that over the Democrats. And as far as I can see so far, their local mobilization is not going to get anybody to vote. They're just destroying things. And I even saw a video like recently where one of the leaders of BLM or Antifa or whatever we're talking about how they're not going to vote. Well, that's great for us then, I guess, if we want Trump, right? So, I mean, don't vote. If the system doesn't represent you and you think it doesn't represent you that much, and you're not going to vote, well, then I guess you're defeating your own purpose, but you're also helping the other side that you hate so much. So, I guess it depends on what locality you're talking about and what kind of mobilization is going on. I do agree when you look at it from the bigger picture that every city that's been destroyed lately, Minneapolis, Austin, San Francisco, Portland, Detroit, are all Democrat-run places. So, what does that mean for us locally? Look around us. We're third world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you go look at someplace on the east side of Michigan that's red dominated. It's not quite so bad. And even
You mean the west side?
Yeah, or the west side. Yeah, and
Right.
and the poor people of those areas are even doing much better than people in Flint or Detroit.
That's what it is.
Or whatever. And is that because it's red? I think so far.
Well,
But again, you're going back down to local politics. And I know that the west side of Michigan isn't totally white. There's a lot of black people in Rapids. There's a lot of black people in Traverse.
Muskegon.
Yeah, all over. And
Right.
they're doing okay, and those areas are doing much better than we are. So
But see, that's a point too. I mean, I've been sitting back for the past few years doing interviews, doing seeing people come in during their political campaigns. And I'm looking at the problems of a country. Okay, we got this happening, this wrong. We got to address this. And basically, as I start examining the basis of all those, I just don't know if any one political party has got a one-size-fits-all approach to effectively dealing with any of them. And I don't know what the right-left paradigm even means anymore. They say I'm on the left, he's on the right. What the hell does that even matter? What does it mean?
Yeah, one thing that's funny is you mentioned earlier about when we were talking about the Republican country club type guy, and that's been the perspective for a very long time about the Republicans. But now, for some reason, maybe it's because of the polarization, maybe it's because of how terrible the left is acting right now, the so-called left. But they're kind of like, capitalizing on it being more of a working class thing now for the Republicans. But it's always historically kind of been perceived, at least in the last 40, 50 years, of it being the country club party. But now suddenly it's the blue collar party. So there's a paradigm shift there too, because the Democrats were always considered the working class party, but that's now completely out the window, and I don't even know what the hell they represent anymore as far as that goes.
Well,
with the last 4 years of just insanity,
There's this interesting article in a book that I have, and I got the book out the other day, and I couldn't find the article because I was busy doing stuff. And hold on here.
Yeah, you're supposed to have that off. Mine's off.
Sorry. But anyway, so basically there's a distinct. Some people say, why would people gravitate towards people like Donald Trump, because he's the enemy. He's a multi-billionaire. He's one of those entrepreneurs. Attack him, and. But this essay is really interesting because it says blue collar people have a tendency to be more conservative, and the fact is that they realize what side their bread's buttered on. You got to deal with the people who actually start these corporations you want a job from. Let's face it, government-run jobs usually suck as far as it goes for pay. Okay, you might get good benefits, but the pay sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want a corporation. What?
And what you're dealing with most of the time,
So the private corporations basically are the greatest creators of wealth. Everybody knows that. Everybody acknowledges it who's intelligent. Even communists, I know, they say initially it's good to have capitalism, but then you got to go to communism. Don't know, because to get things started, to get people to have wealth, you got to have that started. But now later on, you got to transition to socialism, to communism, and then you could have the withering away of the state that we constantly are hearing about from the Marxists, which never happens. Matter of fact, never has, never will, because those people who get into power during that kind of crisis, which usually brings them to power, don't want to surrender the power.
Right.
Face it. You got the Castros, plural, now in Cuba. There's brothers running the damn country. Right. Okay, I would certainly say that was a sense of entitlement, don't you? This is my country. Look at North and North Korea. They got a family for 50, 60 years running it. Right. How the hell's not a type of an entitlement?
Right. Well, but we do have something similar to that here. The Kildys, the Bidens.
The Dingles.
Right. All this, there's sort of this aristocracy happening too. Power versus capitalism. What's Hunter Biden's big things? It was the Ukrainian deal or whatever, millions of dollars. Now they're finding out that he may have also been involved in sex trafficking. That'll come out soon, but it's still an aristocracy. We haven't. It's strange to me because I've read Marx and I understand the theory. We're supposed to go from capitalism into socialism and then evolve into communism. That's an idealistic perspective, and like we were talking about earlier before we came on, there's this polarity that's happening. Of course, rich people need people to work for them, but they don't need to dump on the people that work for them. But let's not forget that we do live in a sort of quasi-socialist system anyway. You have to. It doesn't matter where. If it's going to be just socialist or just communist, where the state controls all the resources, yeah, that's a problem. And then power, corrupting. Ultimately is going to create an environment where you've got the Castros or the Kildys or whomever that want to stay in power as a family or as a unit. But most importantly, what we have to understand and realize and draw away from this polarity that we're being pushed into again is that we already sort of live in a socialist society anyway. You have Social Security, you have welfare, you have farm subsidies, you have tech subsidies, you have all this investment that comes from our government that represents us going into all these fields for various reasons, whether it's to care for people or, like I was telling you earlier about how Crowder changed his mind. Steven Crowder from his show changed his mind about Tesla because he drove around in a Tesla and liked what he saw as far as the product goes. But the main point is he took electric car subsidies basically and actually used them to develop an electric car that then became a product that he put on the free market. And he's not having to pay the government back for those. So it's a subsidy that worked, but worked in tandem with the free market. So if we have to have both. We can't be stuck in this polarity that they want us stuck in. You know what I'm saying? And I hate the Democrats anyway, regardless. I'm not a fan of Republicans either, but I hate the Democrats anyway because of the long-standing history and hypocrisy and reinventing themselves that they have done for, 100 plus years, 140 years or whatever. First they were the Dixiecrats, they were slave owners, and then they rebranded themselves in the 30s, and you had the Margaret Sangers that were supposedly progressives that wanted to actually kill people and have successfully done so because millions of black babies have been just murdered because of her program. So I mean, they're liars, and it's obvious. At least with somebody said it. I was watching something the other day. At least with conservatives, you kind of know where they stand. They don't try to convince you of one thing and do something else. They just flat out tell you we're for this or we're for that. That's it. There's no like gray area when it comes to that. So I do have an appreciation for the right, but I'm not right. I'm not left.
Not right.
I'm not right. I'm kind of in the middle, I guess. If there's a label that might be centrist, I don't know. And that brings me to another point about that anonymous video. The idea of anarchy and anarchism is being completely, put through the ringer once again in history, because the association with anarchists being totally violent, wanting to destroy things and blow things up and all that stuff is the sole identity of anarchists. Well, it's not. It's just not. And that's what's sad about what's going on is Trump's sitting there labeling them anarchists because of the Black Bloc and Antifa. But who was it? I saw the quote recently. Winston Churchill said that fascists in the future will be calling themselves anti-fascists. So I just find that so funny that that's now come to fruition. You can't even have a conversation with these idiots without being screamed down or attacked or even killed. You know what I'm saying? What was that? Rittenhouse, one of the guys that he shot, that he's at that one protest in Kenosha.
Kenosha, yep.
Rosenbaum. Let me say that name again.
Rosenbaum.
Anyway, was like a 5-time offender. I think he got what he deserved. I think he got what he first of all, he's attacking this kid, let alone his history, but he's attacking this kid, throws a Molotov at him, tries to take his gun from him, and he gets shot. Well, it sounds like Castle Doctrine to me. The guy was there to be helpful. That was it. Rittenhouse was there to try to help protect the buildings that got burnt to the ground and got assaulted by a sex assailant, and the guy got what he deserved. Rosenbaum got what he deserved. Now, I don't think Rittenhouse went out to go and do that, but these are the people that the Democrats are supporting, bailing out of jail, not convicting. It's strange to me that they would consider themselves or try to keep considering themselves the working class party, the Democrats, but they don't denounce these fascists that are anti-fascist, that they're supporting or that want them in office. Still Biden's website, if you type in antifa.com, it still redirects all this time to Biden's campaign.
And he's plenty of time to change that, to stop that.
Tons of time.
Yeah, plenty of time. I mean, it takes a few minutes on a computer to stop that.
It's a simple redirect,
I mean, so I just don't know. The thing is, we're living in interesting times, to say the least.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm listening to you, and I've also seen friends of mine who were on the left. They're Democrats. That would be considered left, I guess. I don't necessarily mean they're all like Molotov following radicals, loving Mao and Stalin and all that stuff. But he was more on the left, and he's lost a lot of friends on Facebook because he's challenged the narrative of the left. And he's become, what's surprising is this guy's not a person who likes to read normally. Read anything or anything else. Today I looked at his Facebook post and he responded to something that somebody posted about Ginsburg. And they were saying, look at the list of accomplishments that Ginsburg brought about for women. when some of the stuff they're attributing to her already happened in the 70s before she ever became the Supreme Court justice. I mean, she might have been on board or part of the organizations that are also advocating for those things, but she didn't do it herself.
No.
And they were trying to give this credit for it. And it's like this, the myth-making desire within the left has always puzzled me, because I believe in facts when you're dealing with, historical unfolding of events. And they engage in this, what they call hagiography or whatever, creation of saintliness and, like virtueness and these heroic efforts for simply showing up. That's considered heroic by these people.
Right.
I mean, it's like, that's what I think is just, it's like almost, it's mockable. It is mockable.
Totally. It's weird because they are kind of mocking that thing that you're describing. It's like I told you a while ago. I still do. I used to like that song "Fuck the Police" by Ice Cube and NWA, and it had meaning at the time, and it still has meaning today. But they've co-opted these ideas for themselves to try to make themselves be heroic. And let's not forget, most of these Antifa, most of these BLM people aren't even black. The vast majority of them that I've ever seen in any of the videos on YouTube or in the news, the vast majority of them are rich white kids. Like that one I was talking about before, that chick from New York that living in a $1.8 million condominium, and they had a house in Connecticut. She got arrested for rioting and burning things down. I mean, how is that? First of all, how are you subjected to anything? You've got tons of privilege, and then you're out there attacking white male privilege on behalf of black people, and you're not even a part of the community. They're taking everything that I thought the left was, and making a mockery of it, and essentially I think destroying it, because there was a time when it was okay to be left because it meant human rights, it meant being principled, it meant not just reacting straight out of passion, but acting on the facts of what's going on, and that's gone. That's completely gone. So now that polarization has shifted, like I said, back to the right. Now people are looking at the right, the Republicans, as if they're the more intelligent and balanced and in fact factual party than the left. So I don't know. It's really strange to me. It's really strange to me.
Well, I see shows like The View, where they got these women, and I can usually when I go to get my blood pressure checked at this one clinic or whatever, they got that View on it because it's usually in the morning, and I'm sitting there, and no wonder my blood pressure is raised when I get in the office because I got to hear these idiots talk. I mean, and it's like another thing is too. All I think a political movement can do is to remove or to disavow or whatever artificially created laws preventing people from entering fields of employment, education, housing. You just say you can't pass a law allowing this kind of discrimination.
Well,
but
like
trying to guarantee that everybody else is going to have the same stuff, I think that's ludicrous.
like affirmative action and
that
kind of thing.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't believe any of that either.
It's
actually, what I used to think about, I still do, back in years ago, was that okay, if it's meant to help a certain community, get a leg up, but at the same time, the way it was used as a sort of a political football was that now you got all these white people mad because they're being passed up by someone not as qualified. So now both communities became this like football between the parties, for affirmative action, against affirmative action. Well, now it's a racial thing. Well, now it's not a racial thing. It's about quality of the worker or whatever. And everybody stuck in between, had to pay the penalty. You either got passed up by somebody that was less qualified than you, and they just got a job or went into some school based on race, and then you have the other side getting angry about it and just creating more animosity against communities. It's a divide and conquer concept. That's what I think it served more than anything else. Because let's not forget too, if you know your history at all, some of the biggest slave owners were black in this country. I forget the guy's name, but there's one guy that actually had a breeding stock of his own people, and nobody even blinks about that one,
That doesn't surprise me because if you look at kings and queens over the millennia, all right. Did you ever sit back? Well, you probably did because you're politically minded like I am. But how this family emerge out of all the other families? They're not much different. They're maybe hunters and gatherers. Maybe they're herders. Maybe they're maybe they make something, and all of a sudden they emerge, like somebody comes in after them, so they're strong enough to repel the outsider, so they become the ruler of that area. And now they get a bunch of people to work with them to harass and keep in control everybody else around them, so they can collect taxes from them, and they can live, extravagant lifestyles and people travel to other lands and get pretty finery and stuff like that to bring back to them. And then you gotta respect them. And then you have people coming in and saying, they're challengers. So a guy across the water or whatever wants that property that this other family has. So, well, wait a minute, we won't fight, we'll intermarry. And now we got two groups of parasitic people. That's what they are. They're destroying the people they're extracting that wealth from.
Right.
So the way I see it, capitalism has elements of exploitation. I'm not going to deny that, but the coercion that they're willing to use on the communist, socialist level is far more similar to monarchs and brutal kingships. I don't think it's a capitalist to give rise to brutality. I think actually they're a middle course. They're actually a middle way, because basically, initially, the word capitalist was not the word that people who are engaged in that process were calling themselves. They just consider themselves trade. They're doing trade.
Right.
So capitalism is actually, the word capitalism or capitalist came about from an outsider thinking that he knew, I'm largely saying this,
Saying Marx?
Marx, yeah, that better way. And but the thing is, any person I know who had a business has to bring people into their business by attracting them, by offering something they want at a price they want and maintaining that relationship. There's a lot of effort needed. It's the government, and governments are the only ones I know that can demand cash from you without providing you anything you really desire.
Right.
They come up with things.
Right.
So who the hell sits around thinking, gee, I want a burn permit. Gee, I really want that. I'm going to have to. Well, no, you had to say, I'd like to burn my stuff. Years ago, when we were all people just like in the little hovels and scattered, we burned. That's the general course of things. Say, hey, we're going to burn this because we got to get rid of it. But no, we got to go to to the county office or the city office or village office to pop down a few bucks or to get permission to burn something.
Right.
Now, I can understand if it's a safety issue, but let's face it, we're all here. Somebody, in our ancestry, knew enough to get away from the big bad bear or whatever is chasing them. They had enough intelligence to keep themselves safe from it, because obviously we're here. If they were eaten by the bear or the other predator, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
Okay? So that's the stock we came from. To think that we depend on these people giving permission to do things that typically we'd have done as humans in the natural state or more natural state. To me, nobody questions that, though. I mean, they're obligingly go along with it because they say it's for our public good or the safety. So much is covered in that. I mean, so much is, justified with that.
Well, I think you answered your own question in a way. I mean, it's really just about coercion. If you got enough supply, then you can supply others, like knights, to go and enforce your rule of law. And that's what, like we talked about before, that's where cops come from, is the knighthoods, Knights weren't, full of integrity and just, compassion for the people and all that. They were there for a purpose, to enforce the king's rule, the king's law, the monarch's, decrees or whatever. So it's really about how much wealth you can amass, and then what you do with that wealth once you've amassed it. And if that means you're arming a bunch of people to keep enforcing the way you want to see things, then that's how it works, And people become complacent because everybody just wants that routine. They want to be able to get their money so they can get their food, so they can take care of their kids or themselves and get their little things that they want, PlayStation or whatever it is. But nobody really wants to think about the things that we're talking about. And then subsequently they don't participate socially in those issues because it's just not something that most people don't want to do. So the real exploitation comes from that, mass of wealth, use that to arm people, coerce. In the meantime, people just don't even give a shit. They just want to take care of their own personal lives, and that's a failing in humanity, I think, overall. And I mean, if we had a better way of getting people to understand that, then we might be in a different situation, generally speaking. But I mean, I think you kind of answered your own question. It's really about coercion and the mass of wealth that you have that you can use to enforce that. You know what I'm saying?
See,
So, and then it
I
becomes,
always like to
then
say-
it becomes selective, like we've talked about before too. You know, like, well, do I like this person? Do I not like this? Do I like this group of people? Do I not like this group of people? What am I going to do about it? Well, supposedly, if you're black, you're going to die. But, you know, the statistics show that that only happens on black crime, and that's a crime to even mention because, I mean, what is the statistic from last year? 9 died last year, black people, at the hands of cops. 19 white men died at the hands of cops. Twice as much.
well, they'll say though, because whites make a bigger portion of the population numerically, you know, there's bigger numbers of us.
Okay, but then you can also argue that the vast majority of murders and violence that's happening is happening, and this is not being racist, this is just being factual, you know, it's happening within the black community. Well, that's an issue that the black community needs to handle then. Because you don't have the same rate of murder going on in the other communities.
Well,
You know
I'd
what
like to
I'm
ask
saying?
black activists, or people who are thinking they're black activists, usually the whites. Okay, are you saying that police shouldn't respond to calls in black communities and arrest black suspects for doing crimes against black victims? Isn't that kind of a slap in the face, a kick to the crotch to the victims and the victims' families to say, guess what? It was one of the people who look like you. We're not going to arrest them. I mean, is that we're not supposed to prosecute them because you're like all this? Well, no, you can't do that because we're all family. We're all brothers and sisters. I don't think most black victims are going to say, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Well,
They want
actually,
that prosecution
from
going on.
what I'm seeing, most black people don't want to lose that protection from the police, and not just from their own people, but just generally speaking. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if the idea that the police are there to help protect us and help maintain the communities, most people that don't engage in that within the black community don't want to lose that protection either. They're paying for it. But the problem, I think, is that, again, it's that selective enforcement. We talked about this before, we don't have like a very general way that they're supposed to operate. You got some cops that will just kick your ass and don't care, you know, and then they get away with it. Or you got some cops that actually do care, but because of that blue line, don't want to cross it, so they never say anything. Which is why then the phrase, all cops are bastards, kind of makes sense, because you can't have a good cop in an ocean of bad cops. It doesn't work. You're not a good cop. You've got to speak out or not, you know. Like that assassination that happened in L.A. We talked about the executioners, the guys with the tattoos and everything, and there was one sheriff that tried to blow the whistle and caught hell from it from his department because he spoke up. You know, that you could say that that's one good cop, but the rest of them are a bunch of murderers, and that community, Compton, knows that. You know, so you know, I don't think, my personal view is, I don't think the guy that shot the 2 cops in L.A., the 2 sheriffs in L.A., had anything to do with BLM. That was probably something more personal, you know. But again, you're going back to selective enforcement. It's got to be. It can't be. What's the word? What's the phrase? Rules for thee, but not for me. And that's how it operates, you know. And that's the problem. We need it to be a blanketed, this is the way it operates, that's it. If you're a criminal cop, then the other cops need to step forward and do something about it. I just saw a video this morning, I don't remember where it was at, but a cop, and it was beautiful too to watch actually, cop got his uniform cut off of his body by his fellow officers because he had beaten his woman so badly.
Oh, I remember that. I saw that. Yeah.
That she
few
had a
weeks
brain
ago.
bleed and she
Yeah.
had broken bones and teeth, and he was arrested for kidnapping and holding her and all this other stuff. But it was awesome. But the sad fact is that had he not beaten her to that point, he probably got away with beating her mildly for a long time. And his
Right.
brother cops didn't say a word about it. But because when she ended up in the hospital and the hospital had to report it to the police, then they had to do something about it. And again, that's the rules for thee, not for me crap. That needs to stop. You know,
See,
I don't want to necessarily get rid of responders. I want it to change. I want them to be held accountable.
Right.
Same thing is going on. My mom's offender that trashed her car. We've not heard from a detective. We got a police report that we had to wrestle from them. That was, July 4th, months ago. Nothing. You know, the street that we're on, it's a nightmare. Between 4 and 8 o'clock at night, I'm waiting for somebody to roll over one of these go-karts. They've been called on by all the elderly in the area. Nothing. Nobody shows up. What are you waiting for? Or are you just waiting to go to the black neighborhood because you're needed there because of all the violence? You know, you got to enforce it across the board fairly for everybody, or not at all. You know, we don't need you if you're not going to do that.
Well, another thing is too, you're making a point there about it's been said too, people who are poor are more vulnerable to crime because they're around people who are going to commit more crime. Another thing is too, they don't have the recourse of saying somebody does something to them to take it to a civil case. I mean, especially maybe other than small claims court, which traditionally doesn't cost that much. But if you're going to have a lawyer to maybe oversee a case, the poor person's not going to pursue that because they don't have the funds to get the lawyer to go after this person who did a bad deed to them. So I mean, the defund police people are idiots if they think that their motivation is to help the disenfranchised. The disenfranchised are going to be more adversely, impacted by cutting the funds of cops.
Absolutely.
But see, the only thing I've advocated for, and this still angers people, where the body cams, the cops have to have them on.
All of them.
What?
All of them.
them.
Across the country, every single one.
Right.
There should not be a precinct or district that does not have body cameras, period. Period.
Because, I mean, let's face it, one settlement of millions of dollars for one location, let's face it, you buying cameras for the all the forces across the nation, one of them purchases is not going to cost anywhere near the legal costs and the payout that's going to result if you
don't, right.
Yeah, after a settlement. So it's stupid. It's pound wise, basically, to penny wise and pine wise to look down the road and say you're going to all wear cameras. Another thing is institute a way of police complaints against cops that can be filed or
that
charged.
Actually works.
That don't involve the police officers or their sheriffs or their buddies, their chiefs or whatever, to be the one saying a yay to a nay to pursuing it.
Well,
that's
that
insane.
used to be what was the ombudsman.
Right.
But that's never been effective either. So, I guess depending on where you're at, once again.
Yeah, because the places don't have, there's only one of maybe, I think, a dozen cities that have ombudsmen. I don't even know the exact number. I guess it was supposed to be from a Scandinavian country, the concept of the ombudsman. But let's face it, that's just one of the functions the ombudsman is supposed to, they're supposed to be kind of a intermediary between the citizen and the officialdom of a city or municipality.
Right.
So, I mean, but let's face it, we haven't had one for several years until this one is put in there.
15 years, something like
Yeah,
that.
big chunk of it.
Yeah.
And it came about, the 80s, I think, when they created the 70s, 80s, when they created the office.
Well, wasn't it Bankert that was instrumental in doing that?
He was instrumental in getting reestablished. He had been the ombudsman during the.
I thought he was the first to, what was it, with the city's,
Charter?
Yeah, the charter.
Because it was in the charter to have ombudsman, and then he had been the ombudsman in the early 90s. And then
that's right.
he left office now he's a practicing attorney for family law. So there's a few things I don't agree with Terry on. He and I've tied into it back and forth. But on that ombudsman thing, yeah, I ran into, that's how I first met Terry when he was ombudsman. I was dealing with a family who lost a family member, and I don't want to go into it now. I'll go into it after the show. But anyway, he was the ombudsman at that time, and he was actually the only person of the officialdom of the city that I actually found respect for, because he actually did his job. I can't say he went beyond his job, but he did his job, which is significantly better than the rest of the people in this county who don't do their job at all. So, I mean, that's, when you find that, they just simply do their job, you kind of applaud it,
I guess, How about like this?
Well, no, I was really
like this.
I was really impressed by it, Terry, when I first dealt with him. I don't think it was actually a face-to-face meeting. It was over the phone, because I was like, it was a chaotic time. I'll have to tell you about it later. But anyway, Terry, I have to have respect for, because he did follow through on what he was supposed to follow through, and I give that back. You got to give him credit for that.
But this goes out to the very core of the issue, whether it's cops, whether it's public officials, whatever it is. There's not a real mechanism to keep them in place. When you're talking about that, I was thinking about different things. Like I remember years ago when these like oil execs and congressmen got busted in a recording in a hotel room with bribery and all this payoff crap going on, and it was a big deal. I mean, this stuff has been going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. We don't have a mechanism to keep these people in check and keep them to do their jobs properly. They go all out and hop on the Lolita Express, and nobody's going to know about it for 10 or 15 years. And by the time they do, or maybe they go to Thailand. You hear that, locals? You know what I'm talking about? Maybe they go to Thailand to have fun with little boys on our dime. No controls. Nothing to stop that. and it only comes out when activists, people like me or other people like an Anonymous or WikiLeaks before they kind of became garbage, would dig the information up and put it out to the public. And even then you're risking your life and your livelihood and some sort of selective enforcement upon yourself because you spoke out. We don't have the mechanism. All we got is these weirdos on the left destroying things, supposedly representing a community that they're not a part of.
Look what they did to Julian Assange. They put a sex charge against him, because he dumped. I have friends who are strong, staunch conservative, and they think he was a hero. He did a heroic thing, and so but yeah, they did. They said, oh, we could the cops will tell you this. They'll follow you around long enough to know that sometime you see a cop in your rear mirror, you're going to screw up and you're going to do something so they can pull you over.
Right.
Well, they basically investigated his background enough so they could find some niche in his kink in his armor or whatever, and so they use that against him, and they're trying to use him and vilify him as if he's worse than they are.
Right.
And that's what it is, and it's BS.
Well, what was one of the biggest things was like the assault on that van in Iraq with the helicopter. That was like one of the biggest issues that he leaked that video where they wiped out the van with the kids in it, and it turned out they were not. In fact, there was like a journalist or something, and they weren't even enemy combatants at all. But we just unloaded them. Whew. Man, that video is crazy too. But it was purely honest things like that had nothing to do with anything but just putting out information that they keep from us. If people actually saw that or knew that kind of stuff, then maybe they would react a little bit more. But that's part of the problem. See, we keep going back and forth with these problems. There's apathy, there's corruption, there's the lack of. There's it's a nice basket full of different colored eggs that need to be dealt with. And until people start dealing with them, we're just going to keep repeating the same cycle over and over again. Although I'm kind of afraid now because this Antifa, George Soros funded crap that's going on that's got no controls on it whatsoever, and no repercussions for those involved, is pushing us like right near the edge. And then to use COVID, if it's even all that real, as a way to scare tactic and enforce people into compliance. This is a new environment. It's really strange. I remember a few months ago when it first started. I don't think I ever had that kind of paranoia before. I was afraid for my mom. Don't go out. Don't do this. Is this real? What the hell's going on? And then we start learning the facts about it, and it's probably more just about control or something they're trying to hide from us by keeping us indoors or away from each other or something. But again, it goes back to that basket of different colored eggs. Until we start dealing with each one of these issues, we're just going to keep repeating the same cycle over and over again. And, I think a big part of it is people that are public officials shouldn't be propped up with so much money and resources just because they're public officials. If you care about society, you should just be willing to do the job, period. You know what I'm saying?
So, put service back in public service.
Right.
The only thing they serve is their own interest,
right.
Which is okay. You can do that. That's rational. But if that's the only thing you're doing, then don't expect me to respect you for wanting to pad your, paycheck.
Well, it's back to the monarchy thing, right?
Right.
Like we got prosecutors that have been propped up by billionaires like Soros, locally and nationally. And where do they live? In little private communities, or like right here off Miller Road where Leighton lives in the big giant house. That's a little bit too much interest in your own private interests. You know what I'm saying? As far as I'm concerned, if you got more than one or two cars and you're a public servant, then that's too much. It's too much.
My grandparents owned a restaurant, and I'm glad. I think they would be happy if their people worked for them had enough, had financial success and all that. But they'd be really puzzled if they went into to a person's house that worked for them and they had way more than they did. It's like, how did you get that if I was employing you all these years? So
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's like
kind of crazy.
These guys leave off us with millions, and we're not talking maybe $1 million. Okay, you can understand that. Good investments for
it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 million, whatever. What's Pelosi worth? 80 to 100 million? I've heard estimates of.
Well, and the most recent one with Biden is 3.5 million he got from the Ukraine for whatever it is that's going to come out soon. It's crazy. Why?
Trump's the one that you got to look up because he's in collusion with Russia. Where's the smoking gun? Where's the money? Where's all that stuff? What's the stuff that we typically would suspect a person would commit an act of treason against his country for? Where's that at?
Right.
You did an investigation. Where's it at?
Right. Right.
I mean,
right.
and these people,
And then
besides,
these poor cops. I just wanted to. I just thought of this too. Like here I am, like giving sympathy for the cops, but these poor cops making 50,000, 60,000 a year or so. But they gotta protect and withhold and enforce this crap for these millionaires, billionaires. I mean, it's insane. If anything, they deserve more money and better education. Maybe then we wouldn't have a problem. You know what I'm saying? But they're making about the same as a school teacher, and they got to go put their lives on the line. That's insane.
that's a stupid. It is.
It's crazy. So.
I mean, I've had some problems with Flint cops. I never want to see a cop shot. I will if I ever, and I hope it never happens because it's intense. But if I was ever at a scene where I saw a cop being attacked by a gang of people, I would try to do everything I could to stop it, because I don't think that cop killing that cop is not going to help anybody out.
No.
And it's going to bring heat down to the communities, and that's not good.
Right.
Or just scare off everybody, and now you live in the middle of a total wasteland. No stores want to open up around you. Guess what? You got to go way across town or two towns away to get your food.
Violence begets violence. It doesn't really help anything. You know what I'm saying? Where's the peaceful protests? They haven't happened. I saw an article from CNN, of course, that said 93% of the protests have been nonviolent, but there's been 1,000 casualties in the last 4 years or more. 1,000 casualties. Where's the peaceful protest? Austin's shut down. Nashville's shut down. Minneapolis has no cops. I mean, where's the peaceful protest? I haven't seen it yet. At all. Portland, it's been going on for 3-4 months, not to mention the last several years, but in the last 15, 20 days now, it's just nonstop destruction, nonstop violence. And I do love that they tossed a Molotov into the middle of the street and got one of their own on fire. That was fantastic. All the meme videos that came out after that was just hilarious. I think my favorite one was Footloose. Did you see that video?
No, I didn't.
The BLM Antifa protest where they once again lobbed a Molotov into the middle of the street in front of the cops, caught the feet of one of their own on fire, and he's dancing back and forth, and they're beating him with their shields to try to put the fire. Peaceful protests. Okay, yeah, that's great.
A lot of people, though, over the years would think that you would have initially been on board for the violence. But I never heard you advocate violence. I got to say that I never have.
I never have.
Never. Because the thing is, the only time that I could see violence could be used, and I'll just use this for an example. If you're in your house by yourself, you don't have anybody, family members living with you, in the middle of the night you heard a crash and somebody's standing there that just broke through a window, you got a right to kill that person. In my opinion, you got a right to kill that. That's violence, but guess what? I don't think that person...
Self-defense.
What?
The self-defense.
Right, perfectly.
It's the same thing that Malcolm X said, Panthers said, before all this crazy leftist shit, by all means necessary, but only in self-defense.
Right.
There's no reason to do that. I've had plenty of situations. These morons that got their freaking memorial on Branch Street decided to single me out because I was taking their bottles and cans from their little party.
Trash can.
Yeah, from the trash can right there, right. And this guy tried to assault me at the marathon, drunk out of his mind, took a swing at me and did a whole flip around on his ass. I think it's somewhere out there on Facebook. A bunch of people were filming it. And the whole damn crowd at marathon was like, "What are you doing? Leave the guy alone, Quit messing with me."
A couple years ago,
I beat the crap out of him.
A couple of years ago, I saw a video.
Why?
A couple years ago, I saw that marathon station be the site of a attack too. That was guy got attacked by 2 or 3 people, and he punched out one guy, and the other guy just left. The other one persisted. It was thousands, hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. That's a very famous marathon station.
Yeah,
very famous.
Somebody told me it's the Wild West.
It is
of the East Side there.
Oh, it's crazy, man. Stay away from there if you're from the outside.
Did you tell me that? Was that you that said that?
No, but I believe it's a good analogy.
Somebody did tell me that, though. Yeah.
I go there, occasionally because it's a nice marathon station.
I like the guys that run it too. They're nice.
They seem like nice people, and we just got some very bad people around us. So.
Right. Yeah. Another one I just got to throw out there. When I lived on Stone Street years ago, I don't remember. Oh, yeah. I didn't like my neighbor, this guy Roger. He's like, just ripped, massive guy, but he was really a lot older than me. Probably in his 60s now, but he's still totally ripped because he spends most of his time on the front porch with his dumbbells. Well, this black guy, this white guy, they both were drunks or addicts, buddies of, as you know, their own little friendship, known through wandering the neighborhood and stealing shit and, you know, doing bullshit in Carriagetown. And, you know, a lot of times most people in Carriagetown, for as much as they want to claim that they were all about their neighborhood, hid behind their curtains. Something could be happening right out on the curb, and they wouldn't do a goddamn thing about it. You know, there was only like 2 or 3 of us that actually would ever do anything. You know, and even their little tours of the neighborhood for Devil's Night and Halloween to try to stop fires was completely and totally useless. But anyway, I digress. I didn't like Roger, but he was my neighbor, so I didn't let his property get messed with any more than he let my property get messed with. And I'm pretty sure he didn't like me that much either. You know what I'm saying? We were mildly friendly at best. So one day, I'm out on the front porch just chilling, and I look down the street, and there's this bald white guy and this black guy, and they're messing with Roger right at his car, right in his driveway. And I know Roger, and I know his family well enough that I know that those two had nothing to do with him, you know. And it was becoming more and more tense, you know what I'm saying, to the point where something needed to happen. Somebody needed to step in, or maybe he needed to plow somebody in the face with his fist or whatever. Because, I mean, the guy's ripped. He's got the power. He just never used it, you know. So I step out into the street, and I had one of my dogs with me. And the white guy just, like, the black guy just turned tail and walked away. You know, he didn't want nothing to do with the situation once somebody else got involved. The white guy decided he was going to be a badass and start walking up to me, you know. And I thought I killed the guy, honestly. I thought I killed the guy. He was obviously drunk. But he started marching toward me, and I got a dog that will eat your leg, you know, if I'm fucked with. And he just marching toward me. And I said like 3 or 4 times, do not approach me, do not approach me, do not touch me, do not approach me. And when he got into arm's length, I didn't swing because, in all reality, a punch where you're moving your body past your body is not a good punch, so you never should punch like that anyway. But he literally, like, ran into my fist, you know, fell back, hit his head on the asphalt. I thought he was dead. I honestly thought he was dead. I didn't know what to do, so I just kind of pulled him up onto the grass, called an ambulance, and went and got some ice cream. Thankfully, a week or so later, I saw him riding his bike down through the neighborhood, so I didn't kill him. But, you know, that was an instance where I really had nothing to do with it, but my neighbor needed help, you know what I'm saying? And I assisted. And I didn't even get into the immediate environment of where it was going on. He then approached me and didn't want to listen. So was that justified? I think so. And if he'd have died, I think so. You know what I'm saying? Because he was assaulting me, or attempting to assault me. And I wasn't in my house. I was in the street. That's justified. Self-defense is justified, period. Anything else is not. It's insurrection, it's sedition, it's unnecessary violence.
Well, if you're walking towards somebody who said stop or to get her back, okay, so I don't want to put this further on edge. Okay, I'm stopping. So if the person who's got bad intent is going to advance after a person's warned them, stay away from me. Their dog's growling at them. You know, stay the hell away. I mean, and
Actually,
to continue, they deserve it.
I took my dog by surprise. I knocked him before she had a chance. She's looking up at me like, what just happened?
I want to get ripped into him. But anyway, well, that's a good conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing you probably next week, if we'll hopefully aim for that. And hope people enjoyed it too, and we'll see you back here next week then, right?
Yeah, look for me next week. I'll be passing out some campaign literature
Cool.
for my campaign. So
We'll have some here then, probably.
Okay, yep.
All right?
Yep.